World War II is often remembered for its brutal battles and devastating consequences. However, a lesser-known aspect is the extensive use of drugs by the Nazi regime. Methamphetamine, known as Pervitin, was widely distributed among German soldiers, aiming to enhance performance and endurance. This video delves into the dark reality of how drugs influenced Nazi Germany's military strategies and the profound effects on its soldiers and leaders. A war fueled by drugs. During World War II, Nazi Germany's war machine was dramatically powered by methamphetamine-based stimulants, most notably Pervitin. Soldiers received these pills to boost alertness, suppress fatigue, and sustain rapid advances during early offensives. Developed in 1937 and first sold publicly in 1938, Pervitin quickly found its way into Wehrmacht rations, with over 35 million tablets delivered to frontline troops between April and July 1940. While the initial effects, heightened endurance, reduced need for rest, and diminished appetite, offered short-term tactical advantages, prolonged use led to addiction, severe psychological disorders, and physical deterioration. Pervitin was synthesized in 1937 by chemists at Temler-Werk in Berlin as a straightforward conversion of naturally occurring ephedrine into methamphetamine. Initially released to the civilian market in early 1938, it was advertised as a remedy for fatigue, depression, and low morale among factory workers, students, and night shift laborers. Its rapid uptake reflected an era still reeling from World War I turmoil and the Weimar Republic's economic instability, where many Germans sought quick fixes for exhaustion and anxiety. Recognizing its stimulating properties, military doctors led by Dr. Otto Friedrich Ranke began formal testing in late 1938, confirming that small doses of Pervitin increased alertness, improved reaction times, and significantly reduced sleep requirements. By 1939, as Germany prepared for the invasion of Poland, Wehrmacht planners officially adopted Pervitin for combat use, viewing it as a force multiplier in blitzkrieg tactics. Early orders labeled Pervitin tablets as tank chocolate among panzer crews and pilots' salt in the Luftwaffe, emphasizing its role in sustaining high-tempo operations. Distribution skyrocketed in spring 1940. Over 35 million tablets were issued to frontline units between April and July, enough to give every soldier up to 3 tablets per day during key offensives in France and the Low Countries. Field manuals instructed troops to take 1 tablet at the start of an operation and an additional pill every 6 to 8 hours as needed to maintain performance, effectively normalizing Pervitin use across all branches of the armed forces. In short-term reports, many soldiers praised Pervitin for eliminating hunger, banishing fatigue, and instilling a sense of confidence and invincibility. Infantry units credited the drug with enabling continuous marches covering hundreds of kilometers without rest, disrupting enemy defenses and accelerating German advances. Pilots reported greater focus during long sorties, while tank crews maintained round-the-clock operations with unprecedented endurance. However, these immediate gains masked dangers. Even after a single day's high-dose use, soldiers experienced jitteriness, irritability, and impaired judgment. By late 1940, military psychiatrists observed a surge in cases of insomnia, hallucinations, and violent mood swings among frontline troops. Many became psychologically dependent, requiring ever-increasing doses to achieve the same effects, a classic sign of addiction. Prolonged use led to severe cardiac problems, strokes, and neurological damage. Post-war studies linked heavy Pervitin consumption to lasting cognitive deficits, memory loss, and diminished emotional regulation. Desertion rates and disciplinary issues spiked in heavily medicated units, as soldiers under methamphetamine's grip displayed paranoia, combat fatigue, and breakdowns of unit cohesion. After Germany's defeat, Allied nations studied Pervitin's impact when shaping post-war drug policies, resulting in strict global controls on amphetamines. Modern military go pills, such as amphetamine-based stimulants used by some air forces, are now tightly regulated and accompanied by ethical debates rooted in the Nazi experience. The Pervitin story serves as a haunting reminder that short-term tactical advantages gained through chemical enhancement can come with catastrophic human costs, addiction, mental breakdown, and irreversible health damage. Yet, the pressures of war led many commanders to bypass regulations and black market distribution flourished both within and outside military channels. Civilian consumption remained high as well, with factory and office workers continuing to use Pervitin to meet production quotas, blurring lines between medical necessity and abuse. Pervitin, the Nazi super drug. While early users reported increased stamina and euphoria, prolonged Pervitin use led to dangerous side effects. By late 1940, field medical officers documented cases of insomnia, hallucinations, and violent mood swings among addicted soldiers. Reports from the Eastern Front detailed troops suffering from paranoia so severe they fired on comrades they believed to be spies. Some soldiers experienced severe weight loss and dental decay, as Pervitin suppressed appetite for weeks. Desertion and disciplinary infractions rose sharply among units heavily reliant on the drug, prompting concern from high command. Research published after the war revealed that frequent Pervitin use damaged the cardiovascular system, leading to heart problems and strokes in younger soldiers. Neurological studies linked methamphetamine abuse to permanent cognitive deficits, including memory loss and diminished executive function. Psychiatrists in the Wehrmacht noted an alarming increase in suicides and self-harm among veterans, attributing many cases to post-Pervitin depression. The drug's suppression of pain also led soldiers to ignore debilitating injuries, worsening long-term health outcomes. As Pervitin's drawbacks became clear, Nazi medical research escalated. In late 1941, pharmacologists developed D-MyX, a cocktail of Pervitin, cocaine, and Eucadol, a powerful morphine-based painkiller. Tested on unwilling concentration camp prisoners, D-MyX produced temporary superhuman endurance, but inflicted catastrophic kidney and liver damage. The project, though demonstrating remarkable short-term results, was abandoned as the war situation deteriorated and resources dwindled. By April 1941, Reichshealthführer Leo Conti and other officials issued warnings about Pervitin's dangers, reclassifying it as prescription only. However, these regulations were largely ignored in the chaos of war, and black market distribution thrived. Civilian production matched military output, with over 8 million tablets produced annually through 1944. Post-war studies in Germany and Allied nations influenced strict controls on amphetamines worldwide. Modern "go pills" for pilots and soldiers still trace their ethical debates to the Nazi experience with Pervitin. Understanding Pervitin's role in Nazi Germany reveals a sobering lesson. The short-lived tactical advantages of performance-enhancing drugs can mask devastating human costs. Military planners and medical authorities today must heed the cautionary tale of Pervitin, where initial gains in speed and stamina were ultimately overshadowed by addiction, mental illness, and long-term health damage. Addiction and collapse, the human cost. During World War II, the Nazi regime's reliance on methamphetamine, Pervitin, came at a devastating human cost. Initially celebrated for boosting alertness and endurance, Pervitin soon led to widespread addiction among Wehrmacht troops, causing severe psychological breakdowns, violent behavior, and physical deterioration. As reliance on stimulants grew, military efficiency collapsed under soaring rates of insomnia, hallucinations, and combat fatigue. Attempts to develop stronger compounds like D-MyX only intensified suffering, with concentration camp inmates subjected to brutal experiments that produced super soldiers who quickly succumbed to organ failure. Soldiers first noticed Pervitin's effects as early as 1939, praising its ability to banish fatigue and suppress appetite during blitzkrieg operations. Within weeks, however, medical officers reported dependency. Troops demanded repeated doses to remain functional. By late 1940, field doctors logged cases of severe insomnia, with soldiers unable to sleep for days even off-duty. Hallucinations became commonplace. Panzer crews described visions of ghost tanks during night drives. Paranoia also surged, leading some men to believe comrades were enemy spies, prompting fratricidal skirmishes within ranks. Prolonged Pervitin use distorted soldiers' mental states. Clinical reports detailed violent mood swings, with once-disciplined troops erupting in unprovoked rage. Anxiety and panic attacks spiked. Men confessed to crippling fear during lull periods when tablets ran out. Post-mission debriefs revealed that many veterans, once hailed as heroes, returned home mentally shattered, exhibiting symptoms akin to post-traumatic stress disorder, but exacerbated by stimulant withdrawal. Army psychiatrists recorded an uptick in suicide attempts among frontline troops, attributing many cases to acute depression once Pervitin's effects wore off. The breakdown in mental and physical health directly undermined military cohesion. Commanders noted that Pervitin-dependent units suffered higher desertion rates and disciplinary infractions. Soldiers under the drug's influence often disregarded orders, believing themselves invincible, resulting in dangerous solo missions and unnecessary risks. The disciplined structure of panzer divisions and infantry battalions eroded as addiction fostered distrust among comrades, who feared unpredictability from their own ranks. While Pervitin masked hunger, it also led to rapid weight loss and malnutrition. Reports from Eastern Front medical units described soldiers as skin and bone, collapsing from sheer exhaustion despite continued assaults. Cardiovascular strain manifested in young men suffering heart palpitations and, in extreme cases, fatal heart attacks. Dental health deteriorated drastically. Constant jaw clenching and dry mouth caused severe tooth decay and bleeding gums. Long-term neurological damage was documented in post-war studies, linking heavy Pervitin use to memory loss, impaired concentration, and diminished cognitive function. Desperate for stronger stimulants, Nazi researchers developed D-Nyc in 1944, combining methamphetamine, cocaine, and opioids. Prisoners at Sachsenhausen camp were forced to test D-Nyc, enduring forced marches with 55-mile treks under heavy loads. While these subjects demonstrated extraordinary endurance, they suffered catastrophic organ damage. Kidney and liver failure occurred within weeks. The D-Nyc's program was abandoned as Germany's resource crisis deepened, but not before leaving a grim record of human cruelty and medical ethics violations. In April 1941, Reich Health Führer Leo Conti issued directives restricting Pervitin use, labeling it a controlled substance. Despite these orders, many field commanders circumvented regulations to maintain troop momentum. Black markets thrived within military depots, with soldiers trading valuables for unregulated Pervitin tablets. Civilian factories and rail workers also consumed the drug to meet production targets, perpetuating societal addiction. The Pervitin saga prompted post-war Allied studies that influenced strict global amphetamine controls. Modern military go pills remain ethically debated, reflecting lessons learned from the Nazi experience. The human cost, addiction, mental collapse, and lasting health damage stands as a potent reminder of the perils of chemically enforced performance enhancement in warfare. Hitler's drug use, a dictator in decline. Adolf Hitler's health in the final years of World War II was severely compromised by his extensive use of prescription drugs administered by Dr. Theodor Morell. Hitler received a daily cocktail of methamphetamine, Pervitin, cocaine, barbiturates, opiates, hormones, and vitamins, sometimes up to 20 injections per day, which aimed to treat his chronic stomach ailments, fatigue, and other minor complaints, but ultimately contributed to his physical deterioration, mental instability, and erratic decision-making. Withdrawal from these substances in 1945 exacerbated his paranoia and depression, influencing his behavior during the final days in the Führer bunker. This dependence on drugs reveals a dictator in decline, whose operational judgment and health deteriorated under the weight of addiction and toxic treatments. Adolf Hitler's intimate medical care was entrusted to Dr. Theodor Morell, a German physician with no formal training in gastroenterology or dermatology, who first treated Hitler for gastrointestinal issues in 1936. Morell kept meticulous diaries, recording 74 different substances administered to Hitler between 1936 and 1945, ranging from commercial preparations to his own concoctions. Though Morell claimed to address minor ailments, many of the treatments were unorthodox and included dangerous psychoactive drugs, foreshadowing Hitler's growing dependency. Among the most consequential drugs were methamphetamine, Pervitin injections intended to combat mental depression and fatigue. Hitler also received doses of barbiturates such as bromnervacid nightly to counterbalance stimulant side effects and induce sleep. Cocaine and adrenaline were administered via eye drops, supposedly to improve vision and combat sedation from other medications. He was given Eucodol, oxycodone, as a painkiller, along with various hormones, including testosterone and estrogen derivatives, to address weakness and mood swings. In total, Hitler consumed as many as 20 injections or pill doses a day, creating an overwhelming and toxic mixture in his system. Historians agree that Hitler's reliance on stimulants and other drugs contributed significantly to his declining health by 1945. Repeated use of methamphetamine led to chronic cardiovascular strain, manifesting as heart palpitations and episodes of severe hypertension. Neurological damage from stimulants and barbiturates created tremors, loss of balance, and symptoms similar to Parkinson's disease, conditions also noted by Soviet medical teams after his suicide. Gastrointestinal injections like Omnidin and Mutaflor addressed digestive issues but often masked severe stomach pain, delaying proper diagnosis of his underlying problems. As winter 1944 turned to spring 1945, Hitler's behavior grew increasingly erratic, marked by mood swings, paranoia, and aggressive outbursts. Norman Ohler's research suggests that severe withdrawal from methamphetamine and other drugs intensified Hitler's depressive episodes, contributing to his decision to remain in the bunker until his suicide. Eyewitness accounts from bunker staff describe Hitler as thin, confused, and virtually incapacitated by anxiety, signs consistent with stimulant dependence and barbiturate overuse. Hitler's drug regimen directly affected his strategic judgment and interpersonal conduct. Over-medication left him disoriented during crucial military briefings, prolonging indecision and fostering distrust among generals. His inflated sense of invincibility under stimulants clashed with moments of profound despair in withdrawal, creating inconsistent and sometimes contradictory commands. By April 1945, Allied bombing of German pharmaceutical plants and disrupted supply lines caused acute shortages of Morell's treatments. Hitler's sudden lack of stimulants and painkillers triggered physical pain, insomnia, and mental collapse, factors that likely hastened his suicide on April 30th, 1945. In his final days, Hitler's frailty and paranoia were as much the result of war as of the toxic legacy of his physician's prescriptions. Adolf Hitler's drug use illustrates the perilous intersection of medicine and ideology when examined as a carceral tool for maintaining a dictator's effectiveness. What began as treatments for minor ailments evolved into an addiction that eroded his health, impaired his judgment, and contributed to one of history's most catastrophic declines. Reflecting on this sobering chapter, modern medical ethics and leadership oversight must guard against similar abuses of pharmacological power. Legacy: lessons from a drugged regime. The legacy of Nazi Germany's methamphetamine use echoes far beyond World War II, influencing global drug policies, military practices, and ethical debates to this day. In the war's aftermath, Allied authorities and newly formed health organizations imposed strict controls on amphetamines, recognizing the severe addiction and health crises Pervitin had caused. These regulations laid the groundwork for modern international drug conventions and shaped the oversight of stimulant use in both civilian medicine and military operations. Today, Go pills remain in limited use by some armed forces, regulated under tight protocols that directly reference the Nazi experience, to boost alertness without repeating past mistakes. Culturally, Pervitin's story has inspired books, documentaries, and scholarly works that warn of the moral perils of chemically enforced performance. From ethical reviews in military journals to public policy discussions on drug enhancement, the dark chapter of Nazi stimulants continues to inform debates about human dignity, consent, and the limits of medical intervention in warfare. In the immediate years after 1945, Allied occupation authorities in Germany seized stockpiles of Pervitin and other amphetamines, prompting urgent calls for international controls on stimulant distribution. Recognizing the link between military-issued drugs and widespread addiction, the World Health Organization and newly formed United Nations agencies incorporated amphetamines into their earliest single convention on narcotic drugs, categorizing methamphetamine as a substance requiring strict prescription-only status. Across Europe and North America, national health ministries followed suit, enforcing tighter pharmaceutical manufacturing standards and restricting over-the-counter sales of stimulants to prevent civilian misuse. By 1950, medical journals in both West Germany and Allied countries published studies warning of long-term cardiovascular and neurological damage from amphetamine withdrawal, echoing field reports from the Wehrmacht's own doctors. These findings influenced doctors' reluctance to prescribe stimulants, except in cases of extreme narcolepsy or severe depression, a stance that remains the cornerstone of modern psychiatric guidelines. Despite Pervitín's tragic legacy, some modern militaries have cautiously reintroduced controlled stimulants, often called go pills, to maintain alertness during extended operations. The U.S. Air Force, for instance, authorizes dextroamphetamine use under strict protocols, requiring medical oversight, dosage limits, and mandatory rest periods to mitigate addiction risks. Other NATO forces have explored similar programs, balancing operational needs with ethical responsibilities highlighted by the Nazi example. Ethical reviews in journals like Military Medicine emphasize informed consent, monitoring mental health, and ensuring that troops understand potential side effects before receiving stimulants. These guidelines explicitly reference the failures of the 1940s, advocating transparency and ongoing support for service members who volunteer for such protocols. The story of Nazi meth use has captured public imagination, inspiring bestsellers and documentaries that grapple with the moral horror of chemically enhanced warfare. Norman Ohler's Blitzed. Drugs in Nazi Germany brought widespread attention to Pervitín's role, prompting adaptations by PBS and major news outlets. Museums in Berlin and London now include exhibits on wartime drug use, using Pervitin artifacts to illustrate the human cost of performance-driven ideologies. Scholarship in social history journals examines how Pervitin's normalization in 1940s society presaged modern debates on prescription stimulant abuse among students and professionals, highlighting a continuum from state-sanctioned enhancement to recreational misuse. The enduring lesson of Pervitin is clear. The pursuit of tactical advantage through pharmacology carries profound ethical and human risks. Contemporary discussions in defense policy forums stress the necessity of comprehensive risk assessments, robust oversight mechanisms, and respect for individual autonomy when considering any performance-enhancing drugs. Biomedical ethicists argue for international standards, akin to those governing chemical weapons, ensuring that no military can replicate the coercive practices of the Nazi era. Calls for ongoing research into non-pharmacological means of sustaining soldier performance, such as optimized sleep protocols, nutritional interventions, and resilience training, underscore a growing preference for holistic approaches over chemical shortcuts. Understanding the dark legacy of Nazi methamphetamine use is not merely an academic exercise, but a vital ethical imperative. By studying Pervitin's rise and fall, policymakers, military leaders, and medical professionals can forge guidelines that protect human dignity, prioritize long-term well-being, and prevent the repetition of history's most harrowing mistakes. As our journey through the darkest corners of history comes to an end, remember that the story of Nazi Germany's meth-fueled war machine is more than a shocking footnote. It's a warning about the fragile line between progress and destruction. From the Blitzkrieg's tank chocolate to Hitler's own cocktail of stimulants, we've seen how the drive for power can warp science and consume human lives. Thank you for watching and diving deep with us into the darkest side of Nazis on meth. If this exploration gave you new insights, or if you have questions or reflections, drop a comment below, and let's keep the conversation going. Don't forget to hit like if you found this video eye-opening, and subscribe so you won't miss our next deep dive into history's hidden stories. Stay curious, stay critical, and above all, remember, understanding the past helps us guard against repeating its worst mistakes. See you in the next video.